Hey F150 and Expedition owners, I've got a power steering concern today, and it's probably going to affect most of you at some point in time. Usually affects vehicles that are higher mileage, starting about 03 in Expeditions with the redesign, and then the 04 for the F150s. And the concern is your steering wheel, it gets tight, I guess you could say. This customer described it as a chatter. I guess if you turn it fast enough. What it is, you turn it and it feels normal effort, and then at a certain point it binds, and then you can pop over it and keep going. And there's no noticeable power steering noise, anything weird like that. And another symptom of this is that it has the bind, but it goes away when it gets warm. It'll diminish anyways, won't necessarily go all away. And sometimes if you're if it's so bad and you kind of let it go to the point where it's dangerous to drive, you may have good steering and you get to that bind point and you almost need two hands to pop it over, which is obviously dangerous. You need fluid steering. So I want to show you what it is and what the problem really is, because a lot of you out there, and like this customer did, they started changing hydraulic components, the power steering pump, the steering rack, and all that, and it's a lot of money wasted, especially with the steering gear, because you usually need to get it aligned afterwards, to waste for a simple steering shaft. And it's 2 bolts, and it comes pre-assembled, and you just bolt it in and your problems are solved. I'm telling you now, power steering pumps on these trucks may have a seepage from the center shaft, like a wetness, but that's about the only problem they have, and that's not going to cause any of these issues. That's the biggest problem with the power steering systems. There's no line leaks. There's no rapid steering gear failures with the bellows getting filled with fluid from rack seal leaks. There is no major power steering leaks. There's nothing common for internal failures of either one of them. So don't necessarily go after those right away and waste your money. Do these simple tests and you'll figure it out without replacing unnecessary components. And I'm going to show you how. Alright, we're up in the engine compartment now. We've checked our power steering fluid. Obviously that's fine. They just changed the power steering pump on here. What your real problem is, most likely, is the actual steering shaft right here that comes out of the steering column there. That straight piece and all the internals usually are fine. It's when you get down to the U-joints right here is where they start getting corroded and start binding on you. And you can see at certain points of a turn, this U-joint be more straight than at other points, depending on which joint in there of that cross joint actually seized up. So there's one there. And then there's one right there, you can see it. Right here. There's another one down there, and that one is more prone to binding from all the salt spray. In order to isolate this, we're going to unbolt that bolt right there. It's a 13 millimeter. But before you do, inside the cap here, we don't want the steering wheel to freewheel around and ruin the clock spring in there. So we're going to take a soft bungee and wrap it around a couple of times and hook it onto the stalks here, so therefore the steering wheel can't spin around once we separate it from the steering shaft. Now we can take out that 13 millimeter bolt. Put it to the side, and then you should be able to pull down on this and it'll come out. Okay, so a lot of times, believe it or not, the one that's higher up here, away from that salt spray, is actually more prone to failure as far as binding. This one, it's got some binding, it's starting to fail, but I can turn it by hand. Down below, in that shaft down there, like this, as far as it goes. Boom, stops. So right there, without guessing or anything else, took out one little 13mm bolt, slid it down, and we checked both U-joints by hand. They should be perfectly smooth, easy to turn any direction, swiveled around, no problems. And if it's not that way, you need to change this shaft. Now what's nice, there's a recall right now on the Crown Vics and Grand Marquis, and that one has you changing the shaft out basically for the same reason. They're saying it can collapse and separate the column. That must not be the same design on this truck, because they haven't issued a recall on these yet. But those ones have the same issue with the binding. What's nice on these is that those ones, the shaft that comes out of the steering column has this U-joint as part of this upper shaft, so you got to buy two shafts. Luckily for you F-150 and Expedition owners, this one is complete. The bottom U-joint and a telescoping shaft and the upper U-joint. The whole thing comes as one unit, and you get it all changed out, all the U-joints there, down the salt and the muck, and your steering will be back like new again. Alright, we got approval from the customer to go ahead and change this shaft out. We asked him in detail what the exact issue was, and he said that what we're describing is exactly what was happening, a bind-free issue. So we're going to go ahead and start changing it out. Make sure your steering wheel is still tied up with the bungee cord so it doesn't spin on us. So first thing we're going to do is decouple the top part of the steering shaft and get that out of the way. Might want to clean up this nub that sticks out that's going into your new one, just a little bit. And then we'll go for that lower bolt on there next. Okay, so in order to get to that lower bolt on the steering shaft, the easiest way to do it is to pull this air intake snorkel off of here. There's a 10mm bolt right there, and it pops right out of the airbox, and it pops out of the fender, and you get out of the way, then we could get down in there and work a lot easier. Okay, this lower one's a little harder to get to. The best way to get it straight on like this, where the bolt faces forward. Before I've been facing the engine, the bolt head. So just turn your wheels, your front wheels on the car, a little bit to the left, and it will straighten this bolt out straight. And then what I use is a 3/8 ratchet, a regular 10mm 6-point, and then a 6-inch extension. And you can see it's already loosened, obviously. This is going to be a little harder to get out with all the rust. But you can see I have that swing room now to loosen it. It's a straight shot. Alright, so once you got that lower bolt fully out of there, and this top is of course separated already, what you can do is use this shaft, it's got some weight to it, as its own slide hammer. And you go like this. After about, I don't know, maybe 8-10 pumps, full lengths of the shaft, it'll do that hammer effect, and it'll pull it up out of there, and you can just see how bad the lower one is. Okay, so while that shaft is off, let's clean the nub on there that's sticking out of the rack. And the one sticking out of the steering column, so that we can slip the new one on nice and easy. Alright, we got all our nubs cleaned up and rust free for the most part, and I took our bolts and cleaned the threads on them, and I sprayed brake clean on them to get any kind of oil off of them. Put some Blue Loctite on them, and then we could start putting the shaft back on and getting it aligned. This is the way it goes. Based off of this is facing down the slip joint, and then it goes down, and of course our threads were this way, so you can get that all aligned before you even get down there. Straight down, and our bolt faced the front of the vehicle. Don't put any anti-seize on the nubs or inside of here thinking it's going to slip right off next time, and we'll prevent that corrosion because it's going to get in these threads, and then the bolt's going to back out, and then the shaft is going to be lubed with the anti-seize, which makes it even worse. You're going to make a turn, and your shaft's going to fall off. It's absolutely not needed. Okay, I'm going to use this one for a demonstration. The same thing goes for top and bottom. There's a slot in the shaft, and what you need to do is align the bolt hole up with it. So you slide the shaft onto there, and you could see we can't put that bolt through. There's a piece of metal in the way. And then you get up so far, and now you can see we have a clear path through there, and that's where that little slot is in the shaft. And when this thing goes all the way up, that will align, and we'll have a free shot through there. If you can't get it through, it's not up all the way. Something's not right. It's not aligned, because you'll see that piece of metal sticking in there. And that's to make sure that you put it all the way up. So do that for top and bottom before you start putting that bolt in. In aligning that bottom bolt, make sure that hole is facing forward just like before when we took it out, and move it around a little bit so that it gets onto there and splined, and then it should go right all the way down and on, just like that. Once you got it lined up, it should fall right down, no problems. You should not have to force it on at all. And put that bolt through like I just showed you, it should go right in and start threading, no problems also. That way you know you're aligned in the key slot. Okay, tighten that lower bolt down to 22 foot-pounds, and then we can align this upper shaft and get that one in too. Okay, with your wheels off the ground, turn the wheels themselves back to the right a little bit until it's aligned up with that nub in the steering shaft there, and then we can spline those two together and get that bolt through there also. This top bolt is 35 foot-pounds. Okay, last step, put the air snorkel back in there, pop it back into the box and over here in the fender, and then put our 10 mil back in, tighten her down. We can go for a ride and test it. As a final check, make sure you go over your bolts again. You don't want them to come out, so just recheck them, make sure they're fully in their slots, fully tightened down, they look right, and then you can come back into the car here, start it up, and we can check, you know, full motion to the left and right, and it should feel smooth. No knocking or clunking noises at all when you're turning it, nothing. And it should be nice and smooth like this now. Too bad the shafts have come up to about $300 some odd. They used to be $166 back in the day when they were still in production. You know, this generation vehicle, but if you gotta fix it, you gotta fix it, and I wouldn't trust no garbage aftermarket stuff with my steering, because they'll probably fail earlier than, you know, a Ford one will. And hopefully the new ones, the U-joints are sealed up properly on the new ones with the revised shaft, and you won't have this issue again. So I hope this helps, and hope this was clear enough for you. It's a little hard getting in those tight spaces in the engine compartment, but I think I've got it captured.